This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast, with George Doubinski, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean, the CRM Hobbit Tabor. Jukka Niiranen has joined us. Jukka is a MVP. He's also one of the best CRM bloggers out there. The big news this week that I wanted to first thing get your thoughts is Bob Stutz leaving Microsoft and Jujhar Singh taking his place as the leader of the CRM team. Was that a surprise to you?
Yeah, it must have been a surprise pretty much for the all the Dynamics CRM crowd. I mean, nothing really indicating that kind of let's say plans for departure from the product development perspective as far as I've seen. But yeah, it's interesting that Bob's now going to the analytics cloud side of things at Salesforce. So probably a bit of a sidestep from his long career in CRM. So kind of course, we'll never know what the real motives there are. But as far as then Jujhar taking over the lead in Dynamics CRM, I mean, I couldn't be happier with a guy who's then now in charge of the roadmap based on what we have seen from him in the MVP summits and all the presentations. I mean, I think he's really got a great vision for how the platform should be taking forward. So interesting times, yeah, no doubt. What about you? What was your initial reaction to the news?
It was a surprise. It was a surprise to me, and I do think Bob deserves a lot of credit because if you remember back 4 years ago, in mid-CRM 2011, things were kind of a mess in that we had a bunch of problems with. First of all, we were being beaten by competitors like Salesforce, hands down, in things like social and mobile. But also the release cycle and the release cadence was really, really choppy because they were trying to put new features and update rollups, and we had it was right when they had announced the legendary Release 9, which was supposed to bring in the cross-browser support. And Bob came in and put a stop to it and put it on a regular release cadence, which we have now, and I think we're 3.5, 4 years into that. We can see the benefits there. So I think Bob deserves a lot of credit for in a lot of ways turning the release cycle and the focus around. The biggest criticism I've heard in the community over the past 3.5, 4 years is kind of a move away from the focus on XRM. The big message was the platform and the XRM and extensibility, and some of the new features introduced lacked some of that. And I think we've seen recently with the move putting the team under Scott Guthrie and also some of the enhancements coming in 2016, it kind of feels like XRM it's kind of like a rebirth of XRM.
Because we discovered the news just as we came into Extreme, so it was kind of unexpected. But immediately conspiracy theories surfaced up. That Bob actually is an implant that to complete the previously failed takeover of Salesforce, so from the inside.
So they're thinking it's the next Nokia?
Yes. So we just implant someone on the inside and then just destroy it from the inside and take over for the fraction of the price.
And weren't there some of the EMEA leaders of the CRM team that also recently went to Salesforce?
I believe so. Yes. So some couple guys from EMEA. I don't know the names, but yes, it happened. So a couple major guys went over. So
I would probably avoid reading too much into that just because, I mean, there's been people from Dynamics team that have gone to Salesforce. There's been people from the Salesforce team that have come to Microsoft too. And it seems like in the new cozy relationship that they're more open to that and
I mean, seriously,
finding each other.
Look, my personal point of view, and few people share that point of view, that we've seen since Bob joined like 3.5 years ago. As an MVP, I can say that during the MVP summit, we started to get some real engagement from the team, and the team becomes much more agile and energized, right? we didn't necessarily agree with some of the Bob's directions or some of his purchases, let's put it this way, but overall it was a welcoming change. Now that the CRM development moved under, the entire CRM moved under Cloud and Enterprise, right? So perhaps it was a friction in the relationship between Scott Guthrie and Bob that led to his departure. I don't know, but Juja in charge is absolutely welcoming change. I think just from CRM perspective, I always shared more with Juja in terms of thinking and forward directions than with Bob. So
and Jujar was always much more available too. Jujar was always the one who spoke at MVP Summit, and we would grill him with all the questions. And
correct.
Went to CRMUG and things like that, where Bob was more the vision leader, and he was not as in his role, he was not as accessible to people like the MVP groups as well.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't name the other person who reported to Bob.
Right.
Except Jujar. So to me, it was straight line to the top, and Jujar was much more accessible. And to me, Jujar was CRM, has been CRM for quite some time, right? Bob was just Jujar's boss. That's what my view on things were anyway.
Does it feel to you, George, that it's kind of like the return of XRM in some ways?
It will be like that because Microsoft Ignite, which is next iteration of TechEd, we dropped off the TechEd radar years ago, and now we're back like CRM. Zune is out and CRM is in.
I'll miss those Zune sessions. And add to that Shan MacArthur and ADX being added, and Shan being the world's biggest XRM advocate. So in some ways, this feels in line with some of the other recent moves, such as putting Dynamics under Scott Guthrie, to me.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I mean, there's been lots of comments coming in from the especially the kind of developers or ISPs who've been building a solution on top of XRM previously, and now because of the fact that there was so much focus now for the past couple of big releases for the kind of application side of things and like polishing the whole user experience for those scenarios that Microsoft was thinking about, but they're not providing really extension points for like then building it into a customer-specific solution for their business processes. So there was definitely some backlash there from the XRM crowd, and whether things are now then dramatically different, I don't know. I mean, there still are some pain points with kind of like how much you can really fine-tune the kind of way that the application works. There's still some, like, I think, gaps there to be filled, but definitely if we look at now the acquisition path of like ADX and then Field 1, I mean, really, during the past year, we've really seen a huge investment on building on top of XRM, not alongside it. So I think that's it's been a really encouraging year in that perspective. And if you think about, I mean, how much new capabilities are now getting into the platform. I mean, for example, in ADX, it's well, my colleague was just saying he's got a background in the collaboration and like internet world, and he was saying that a few years ago it would have been crazy to like think that in the year 2016 one would be building public internet sites on SharePoint, but whereas then Dynamics CRM would be a perfectly viable solution for CMS for your web portals. So I mean, in that sense, it's if you compare it to the other platforms that Microsoft has, then I think that the XRM platform now has only a good rhythm to it and lots of potential and interest also from, I mean, just outside of the pure CRM scenarios that we've usually been working with the sales marketing scenarios and those processes.
My take on it too, why a lot of people like us, MVPs, people who are involved in things like CRMUG and MVP Summit, things like that, one of the reasons that I think we're excited about it too is we know Jujar, because Jujar is always at those things. He always goes to things like CRM Summit, makes himself available, and we've had some sessions with him where we have just grilled him. No human should take that level of grilling, but especially back 3 years ago when people thought that the product was going the wrong direction, people were asking very emotional, heated questions of him, and he came through that smiling. And I've always felt like he's been very upfront and acknowledges where there's problems and then looks for a way to fix them. The other reason that we wanted to talk to you is you've been writing some great blog posts, and the one you did this last week about CRM with social engagement and kind of really digging in and see with the new features being added to social engagement. What's your background with the social engagement and NetBreeze platform, Ben?
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually, it was a bit of a personal hobby for me to like start digging into it more during this past couple of months, because of the fact that we finally received now the actual integration for pushing data from social engagement to CRM, because previously, I mean, the original acquisition was done like a couple of years ago already, but we've still been waiting on actually getting the applications to then talk to one another. And with CRM 2013 Certified 1, we already got those social profiles and social activities there into the Dynamics CRM entity schema, but there wasn't really a way to like actually build anything accessible out of them unless you took the SDK and like build your own applications for it. So that's why I think that now with the very latest versions that came out just a couple of months ago, that actually now enables you to hook up your MSE instance and point it to a CRM Online instance, and soon also CRM On-Prem instances, the way that you can now then actually get proper activities from the social channels into being part of your the customer account and contact history, then I think that's like now we're starting to get to the point where actually there's a good story to tell for Dynamics CRM customers about what this is, what the social engagement product is going to be changing for them. Because I mean, from a license perspective, it's been available for many Dynamics CRM customers already because of the fact that if you are CRM Online customer and you have more than 10 professional licenses, then you do get the MSE subscription there. But it's always been, I mean, it's also integrated with the Office 365 portal. But apart from that, I mean, the connection with the CRM, with those marketing features and kind of that support story has been pretty weak so far. Lots of great ways for like analyzing the stuff that's out there on Twitter and other networks, but not really like yet the process aspect there. But
right.
So now when I then got a chance to play around with the new integration a bit and like think about, okay, now when we do get the physical data into CRM, then it's actually surprisingly how much the kind of new scenarios, that tiny bit of integration there then unlocks what you can now do with the combination of those products.
We'll put a link on our blog to the Dynamics World webinar that you did, as well as your blog post kind of summarizing it that has the PowerPoint. I think my impression has been a lot of people saw the news about the NetBreeze acquisition, and at first it was limited to only sentiment analysis, which some people are really interested in that, but I find that not everybody wants to do that. I think if you're a B2C type company that's selling to actual end users, where your pool of customers you're more customer facing, then if you're a hotel chain or if you are a brand like Microsoft, you're interested in that. Where a lot of CRM customers are more B2B, and if you are Acme Widgets, where your products are used by other companies to manufacture their products, that's not such a big thing. But when you add in all the stuff that's been added, and now even being able to take things from your social feed and create opportunities and create cases and things like that, that to me is where it really gets interesting to your average CRM user.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's prior to this, integration has really been kind of a solution that you could easily talk about with a B2C customer, but especially here in our local markets, I mean, by far the B2B customers dominate the Dynamics CRM space, and also one aspect then to think about is that if you think about the inside view integration that's been now offered for CRM Online customers as well, that's only been limited to the US market, so there hasn't really been anything really for the social selling story from Microsoft as such. And of course, you can purchase the LinkedIn integration there and then embed the all those networks and feeds into your CRM account and contact and lead forms, but then that's also well, it's a separate solution, and you really need to have a fairly expensive license for LinkedIn Sales Navigator then to actually see it. So it's not that kind of a democratized social kind of a solution that actually MSE is, or that has been like promoted. So that's of course the limited fact right now is that it's still only about Facebook and Twitter, so we don't yet have a connection to LinkedIn or then other popular consumer networks like Instagram. But if you look at what Microsoft has actually been building there for that for MSE and for the integration, then it's been more about the capabilities there for then sticking in these new networks. So I think it's been really smart that they haven't really just gone in the easy way and like they point-to-point integration with Twitter, for example, but rather it's been then investing in having all those toolkits in the external platform for actually then taking in the social profile activity data from any network, and then having those also these rules and general properties there that you can then use for converting those items that come in from the external networks, and then applying your own business logic on top of that. So I think in the end that's a lot more valuable toolkit than for like supporting the customer-specific processes, rather than having some very let's say shortcut integrations on the UI level and just having links between the different systems, not really a kind of a process automation capability underneath there.
When I've talked to clients and prospects about this, I find a lot of them are already using something in this area. A lot of people are using Hootsuite, and I think that comes from Hootsuite has been very successful with their free version that a lot of individuals use, and then they say, okay, there's these professional features we can pay for. They have a natural thing in there. So I think in some ways that may still be an advantage for Suite, where people can just an organic kind of individuals start using it, and then companies see what their employees are using, and then or the marketing people are already using that, and they just adapt it to their social strategy for the business as well. And it's interesting that Hootsuite has just announced their add-on for Dynamics CRM as well. So that I think is going to make this area more interesting as well.
Yeah, I was just going to mention the fact that there was on the very same day when I had my presentation on dynamicsworld.com, then there was the announcement that now you can also integrate CRM and SharePoint with Hootsuite. And of course, as you mentioned there, it's probably a nice working integration there. I looked at just the demo video they had for it. They didn't yet have the full user guided documentation for it, but again, it's kind of if you think about then the actual taking that integration into use, then you'll need the enterprise level license for Hootsuite as well, and the pricing from that is not going to be cheap because it's not public pricing. So again, there's going to be probably then barriers in place for actually people adopting that integration into their CRM as well. But having said that, of course, one thing that people may not then have noticed is that also for the Microsoft Social Engagement, then you need the enterprise license for actually being able to track posts and profiles from MSE into CRM. So you cannot do that with the sort of free version that you get there when you purchase CRM Online Professional. So, and I kind of understand the fact that Microsoft now wants to then push this kind of their all-you-can-eat license for the CRM Enterprise user licenses. So with that, of course, you can then do anything in MSE and adding the Dynamics Marketing and all those other products. So still probably very great value for money. And if you are an existing customer who's been now purchasing new services from the this 365 portal, purchasing Power BI Professional, and then CRM and other tools, then I think there's still a definite advantage there for having it all managed by the same provider and the same kind of licensing scheme there,
right,
compared to an external services like Hootsuite.
So I'm wondering, looking in your crystal ball, if Microsoft, and I believe they're looking at on additional sources. One of the most exciting, I think, is the RSS capability they just added, because that really opens up the door where a lot of services, even Facebook, you can get RSS feeds of various feeds and things like that. I'm not sure if LinkedIn offers that, but that opens up the door to virtually any website or blog or a lot of other communities. But considering if they go down the road and add LinkedIn, what does that mean for people like Inside View? Is the social engagement start bringing in some kind of Inside View type features if I can integrate with LinkedIn?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, and something where there's lots of then, of course, commercial variables also around it, because like some might know, the APIs that LinkedIn has previously provided and that were really taken advantage by many of the smaller CRM suites. So then, of course, those have been now shut off, and there's only then a few selected CRM partners that can actually then, or service providers that have then access to LinkedIn data, Microsoft being one of them and the other being Salesforce. So it's, of course, not just about then whether you have the physical capability in your platform to actually take in the data, but rather than what's going to be, what kind of products and contracts you can then combine out of that capabilities. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's especially important that you don't really hardcode these integrations into your CRM platform as such, because 1 year from now you'll never know what's going to be really the status of each network or what kind of data you can actually get from those sources. So you really have to be more agile with just having the kind of the plumbing underneath there, and then being able to connect these sources of data in there, and then also, of course, thinking about how you can then bring more value into that data from those networks by then applying your own machine learning on top of that. So I think that's Microsoft is going to really be also pushing a lot of their own kind of network intelligence that they can then collect from services like Dell, for example, or the Microsoft Graph that was just announced in the Connect conference there for the developers. So because that's really again a huge network that Microsoft is sitting on top, and they have the access to that data. So what they can, for example, give in return to partners like LinkedIn for.
And I would love to see it go in that direction. I like Inside View, but there's some things that I find, some challenges I find with it. One is the way that users are synced, and especially giving you the capability to say take an entire company and add the contacts. I find that's a major source of duplicates in a lot of ways, because it's not very intelligent about how it does it. So internally, as well as some of our clients, we've had users who will go and say sync an entire company, or even worse, an entire group of companies, and you wind up with a bunch of duplicates in your system. And so, I think making that intelligent, and that's one thing I like about social engagement, is like the way that it's more selective as far as creating cases. You don't get every tweet inside a CRM, and you don't want to fill your database up with that, and that data is really not long-term data you want to keep, but you want to use that to do things like find opportunities and respond to people and things like that. So leaving that in there, but giving you a way to track that, identify customer service issues and cases, and even sales opportunities. If we had that same kind of selective thing with say a LinkedIn or that type of thing, or a way to do LinkedIn mail through it would be great. And as well as we've talked earlier on the podcast about the LinkedIn integration, and some of the disappointment around closing off some of the free APIs, which I understand LinkedIn, their IP is their data, and so they want to preserve it, they want to monetize it, but with so many people using that, it's kind of an invaluable source for a lot of businesses. Personally, I don't like LinkedIn from a user experience, but I can see why it is, compared to a lot of these sources you pay for, that are more cold. It's a lot of times more up to date information. I like the fact that creating records from social engagement is more selective, more valuable than just dumping all the data into CRM. So what else are you excited about? What else have you been blogging about, or do you have anything you can share with us that you have in the near future?
Well, I think if we, of course, social engagement is part of the kind of story how you expand CRM into these new channels and gain more a better 360 view of the customer. But I think that's all the story around the AD Studio portals, and then also Field 1 is going to be something that we will spend a lot of time during the next half a year, like building up then scenarios with customers about how that can also serve as the kind of another front end for the kind of similar discussions. So I think that's the social channels as an isolated application are not going to be that valuable, but really having the capability and also now the kind of the Microsoft branded portal offering available there, then that's really something that will surely then make lots of new customers interested in having their CRM be really the hub for their system of engagement, so to say. So definitely going to be, I think that it's expanding into areas where previously, of course, the marketing automation solutions were already great sources for like getting some actual interaction data from customers into a CRM and then being able to like process that and do some scoring and things like this. But being able to have these external users actually being part of like accessing the same CRM data with their limited rights by these portals, then that's a whole new world that's going to be now unlocked by the capabilities in the CRM 2016 platform, and then the combination with the AD Studio portals. So I think that's going to be something I'll then spend some time blogging about in the coming months once we get a better understanding about how that then really resonates with the customers' needs in the existing environments that they might be just using CRM for their internal processes. But now with the new doors open to the actual outside world, then it's going to be a lot more fun to discuss with them in the future.
I think we're going to look back and see CRM 2016 and what happens after it as the next major chapter in CRM, specifically because that's when, for the general population, external user access and what that really means became widely available. Sure, there's been portals, there's been a lot of portals, but having a standard portal option where almost everybody will have some kind of external access, that's going to really, I don't think we can underestimate how that's going to change things. And I think in a lot of ways, a typical CRM deployment a year from now will look much different than it does right now.
Yeah, definitely. There's not going to be kind of the sort of back office label that you can put on CRM anymore, but it's sort of going to be in the front there, in front and center with all the interactions with the customers, and not just something that you then, once you come back to the office, you do your data entry there and like update your sales pipeline with the opportunity data. But I mean, the combination of having both the new productivity tools for the traditional sales users, having the CRM app available on all the devices there, and linking it naturally into the OneNote and Office groups, these kind of productivity tools, combining that then with the new customer-facing options that you have with the portals and the social and marketing tools, then like it's a kind of a stack that you could have only dreamt about, let's say 5 years ago, even though you could have definitely built it, but it would have been, you had to have the kind of vision for actually understanding that you can do that with CRM. But now there's so much kind of pre-configured stuff that you can use as a building block for building that future platform for you, that I think that's going to be the key factor here that will then open the new doors for these new scenarios for the XRM platform.
How did you manage to fool me with your blogs that for months and months I was under the impression that Jukka is actually a top-notch developer? The style of his writing, the style of his writing, the insights, the depth, absolutely fooled me. I said, he can't be like marketing person. He talks like developer who knows what he's talking about. And then we met and we chatted at the summit, and Jukka says, I'm not a developer, I'm the marketing, I'm, business side. And it came both as a bit of disappointment, but at the same time of excitement. I mean, how did you manage to pull it off? That is, how do you manage your writing and your thinking to align with both business and developers? Because typically people take sides, and it's very clear when they write and when they talk which camp they belong to. And you seem to be kind of across the both. Can you actually write a line of code?
Not really. I can copy a lot of stuff from the web, but that's about it. So I know my limits there.
Developers do anyway. So.
Yeah, I know my way around Stack Overflow and these kind of sites, of course. But I really use those information sources then for understanding about what should I be telling the developers in the team to actually how to implement things and push the designs a bit further than like giving them the kind of blanket business requirements, but rather saying them that actually these are the platform tools that you should be using for building it, and then you just let them take over the responsibility of having the code actually work and be compatible and pass all the unit tests. So I think that's my strength has been in not being able to actually write code, or knowing that it's not going to be an area where I would then be really an excellent superstar or ever. So that's then forced me to actually investigate all the kind of ways around it. So making the most of actually the Dynamics CRM platform capabilities, the customization tools, and all these. And with the incredible amount of community resources out there, I mean, all the tools that then the developers put out there, and examples and blog posts that they write, I mean, you can really get a great understanding about what you developers actually do there, but you don't have to get your hands dirty and actually try and learn to do the JavaScript from scratch there. So I think it's kind of proves the point that why Dynamics CRM is such a great platform is that even a business or marketing guy like me can actually take the platform and then work with the right people and get excellent results from it, and discover some new capabilities in the kind of solution architecture and tools available there without knowing about how it actually has been then built from zeros and ones under the covers.
See, I would contend, speaking as a former sales guy and someone who's recently moved back more into that side of things than getting my hands dirty doing configurations. And I am not a developer, George, so I admit that. But I would say that
but you come across as a non-developer.
Right.
Jukka managed to hide it.
Right, but I would say, here's what I would say, though, that people with the perspective in both worlds sometimes are the most valuable resources and the best bloggers, because that's where the users are. And so I think, when I read Jukka's stuff and the approach I try to take is, what is an actual user going to care about, and what's the experience for them going to be? Versus not saying developers can't be there, but a lot of times developers get too deep into the technology or get too deep into the, wow, I can do this really cool plug-in thing, and then kind of lose sight of that. So I think we need both, and that's when I look at the MVP Summit, when I look at the people in the room, there's people, everybody's a little bit different, but it fits together very nicely, where you have yourself and David Yak and Mitch who can all fight about who's a real developer, and then you have people like me and Jukka and Rick and other people who are not that but bring that side to it. I will agree that Jukka, from reading your blog posts, I would peg you more as a technical, developer type as well. It must be the long dark nights in Finland where you dig in and you get deep into the subject, and I really appreciate that. Where George and I, our blog posts typically we spend typically are 2 paragraphs on tip of the day. So you're kind of the opposite of our blog. You have the depth, and we have the short hits.
Yeah, I guess sometimes maybe I've tried to put out a small kind of a tip about how to do things, but then I start digging deeper there and like thinking about, okay, actually this relates to this other feature, and they actually should know also about these things. So my challenge is that I can't really stop there, and I just then end up writing a Bible instead of a tip of the day. So each to his own, I guess.
If we did that, we'd have 2 tips a year, I think, George.
Yeah, to me, when I compare, I mean, Jukka's posts are very insightful, and I do appreciate the effort that you put in, because to me it looks like me and Joel, when we write tip of the day, it's more like, let's say we talk about cars, it's more like, oh, look, here's a new button in Tesla that
it's blue.
Opens sunroof. It's blue, and it opens sunroof slowly. And Jukka goes, oh, let's talk about differences between combustion engine and rotary engines, and goes on 3 pages talking about why rotary engine never took off, though it's technically better. So that's the kind of difference, yeah. And I do appreciate it, and you do manage to bridge both worlds, and it's excellent. That's why people read. That's why people get excited by your posts. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think there's still definitely demand for both kind of content there. So I mean, many of the things that you come across there, questions from customers, why does this feature not work, or work around this? I mean, the right answer for them would be to give them a tip of the day kind of a post that has like 2 paragraphs and the answer there, and maybe links to else. Whereas then if I put them into my blogs, then they will see that it's like 10 pages long and like it has 50 slides attached to it, and also 10 links to other sites. So they will then tune out and not actually then get the real benefit from it. So each to his own, and I think that we definitely need to keep on doing both kinds of blogs in the future as well.
One of the reasons why I thought of you as more technical as well, and this was my favorite thing one of my favorite things you did, was when someone was stealing your content, I think you had a very ingenious response to fight that. Can you share with our listeners what you did about people who were embedding your content in their websites?
Yeah, so I discovered a few sources there that were then borrowing content not just from my blog, but then also from other sources. And then I was looking at, well, of course, should I now post a comment there to their blog that's why we ripped this off, and please delete it and don't do this again. But then I noticed that actually they didn't only copy the content, they actually took a full copy paste of also then the links being the images being linked from my website servers. So actually then I realized that I have the control over what that image looks like, because it was always retrieved from my servers and shown on their website. So I did a bit of editing there for the original images, replaced the links on my own blog there, and served a bit of a different version to the, let's say, external parties who were sharing that content as their own. So you can probably find that from my blog as well. If you search for the blog content theft topic, then you might see the end result there being recorded also into a permanent PowerPoint deck.
And so your typical marketing or business person would not figure out how to do that. So that does show you have some technical chops.
Yeah, I think that was one of my reasons as well, that I believe that Jukka is strongly in developers camp, because marketing person can't figure that out. That's too complex. And it's still on my list to do. People started ripping off CRM tip of the day, so it's still on my list to do, to serve if images are served from our server but to elsewhere, like to serve instead like the image that says this post has been stolen or something like that instead of the actual image.
Well, Jukka, I appreciate you joining us this morning. And if people want to follow you, you are Jukkan on Twitter, and your blog is survivingcrm.com.
Yeah, it's got its own domain now after so many years of being hosted out of my personal .eu address. So maybe that's a bit easier for people then to discover it once they want to go back to reading the Bible from my website about CRM.
Here's the scoop from Extreme. First, I love Extreme because it's a small conference. It's a developers conference that runs twice a year in Europe and in United States. But the way it's organized, the conference is held at one place because it's small. They find a venue that is big enough to fit the small conference, and you don't have to go out. Like, you can stay in the same place. So we're staying at Western Gaslamp Quarters in San Diego, and if you want to do some work, you just go upstairs and do some work. You don't even have to go outside. So it's all here, and the networking is here, drinks, it's all available, and it's like people communicate a lot. So a lot of networking going on. So,
okay.
So this is really good. And this is, well, it's a tough crowd because these are developers. So most of them developers, and you see people in the audience when you're delivering presentations, it's like stone face, no feedback, nothing. It's like, I know better than you do. And it's really tough. So if you manage to get something across to them, just a single thing, it actually goes across quite well. And I did a blog post on the things that CRM tip of the day I discovered during the presentation, that people are not aware of the things that's been around for 4 years. And they get excited by listening to that. I'm saying, yeah, guys, where have you been? It's
so
been around.
Do you find it's a lot of Microsoft partners? Are you networking to find clients? What's the audience at Extreme?
Well, for the first time, I did go in as a sponsor, as a conference sponsor. So we're pitching our product, our WordPress portals, talking directly to CRM. So I went in as a sponsor, so I spent a lot of time on the floor talking to people and trying to engage. Mostly it's partner audience, and partner, not so much from the business side. Partners come in as developers trying to see lead developers trying to see how other products fit into their development life cycle, how other products can make their life easier. So you see lots of vendors who come from ISV side, but these vendors are more developers focused rather than business user focused. So you still see traditional like click dimensions and PSA, they're major sponsors, and then you see like Xperi Docs, you see Kingsway Soft and others, other sponsors, and I decided to join in and try my luck and trying the foot in with our product, which we just released. So this is our first public release. Anyway, so as I said, it's a developers crowd, a bit tough at the time, but a lot of networking and a lot of good stuff. And interestingly enough, you can see more Microsoft people than you see, say, at CRM UG. So you
really?
see some of the you see some of the members of the developers team, like Matt Barber is here. He's delivered a few talks, quite exciting ones. Then the USD team here, we delivered a few trainings on USD, and finally we got to meet them face to face. So that's exciting. There's a lot of people from the training side and the partner channels, partner management channels. So it's actually a buzzing conference, a buzzing little conference. So I'm really excited to be part of it. Now, the one thing, if I have to complain about, one of the things that during the presentations, what is quite often it's hard to tell where the real stuff ends and the what I call PowerPoint UI begins. So sometimes you see the screens and say, is it coming or is it a PowerPoint? Is it a screenshot, right? A prototype. And sometimes you get the answer, oh, it's a prototype and it's not coming. So it's not coming until, say, fall. Oh, no, sorry, fall. Spring. Not coming until spring. So it's not going to be in 2016. So sometimes it's really difficult to separate what is actually going to be in 2016 and what is not going to be in 2016.
Now, are they doing that to get kind of a read-on reaction to the features that they're thinking of?
Sometimes they do that, but sometimes it's just presentation talking about future features of CRM, because we're so close to the release. people want to know what's in, what's out. But I think, in all honesty, even team members are not sure what's in, what's out, because it's a tight race to the finish, and features will be dropped. The deadline will not be missed, so features will be dropped. So I would love to include all of it, of course, but
Right.
the reality is that end of the year is approaching, and release will happen in December, do or die, and that means some of the features will not make it. But my gripe is not so much with the features that are there in the demo, but saying, hey, look, it may or may not make it, right? My gripes are with the features like we've seen. There is a slide, and there's a color coding on the columns, on the fields in the list view. And everyone's
like a conditional formatting kind of thing?
Yes. And immediate question is, hold on, is that the real thing, or is that the mock-up? And the answer was, it's a mock-up. I was like, duh. And it was disappointment, because everyone wants that.
Right.
So yes, the other thing is I completely, during this week, I completely changed my mind about SSRS.
Okay. In a good or bad way?
For which side?
Like, are you more pro SSRS?
No, I'm more pro Power BI. And what happened, I received a call from the client, and she said, look, I need reports, and she needs reports all the time. I said, why won't you try Power BI? And she did take it for a spin, and absolutely loved it, and said, yes, I can do that. There is a challenge because we are partner-hosted CRM, and I have to install the gateway and things like that, but it's doable. It's actually doable. Now, the one thing people may want to be aware of, that if you want to try personal gateway is okay, but if you want to try data gateway, sort of more server-side data sync from on-prem to Power BI, trial subscription, even pro subscription, is not good enough. You actually have to have the real subscription. So they won't do it on a trial. So if you're interested to try on Gateway, just sign up one user. One user to Power Pro for $10 a month, and then you'll be able to install Gateway and bring in on-premises data.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit more, because this is actually, I've had similar thoughts this past week or recently, and I'll probably write a blog post about this once 2016 is officially out of NDA. But there's things we could talk about that are in the roadmap without giving too much away. So this blog post is going to be called "Who Needs SSRS?" Okay, because going back, and I talked to a lot of clients who have had CRM since the old days, 2011 or earlier, and back then SSRS was really your only choice for application level reporting. You had export to Excel, but it was so limited I don't even want to count it. 2011 brought in dashboards and charts, and I would say that cut off about a third of the common uses of SSRS, because now we can have a dashboard, we can have charts. There's more than ways in SSRS to make that. That's also then when more people start going online, which, while it has SSRS based in Fetch, it's much more limited. Then Power BI, so we cut off a bunch of the low-level SSRS reports with charts and dashboards. Then with Power BI coming in now, that starts chipping away at the higher end of SSRS, the multi-data source, the more complex analytical kind of stuff where SSRS could do but was never a great fit for, and a lot of people who want to do that want to slice and dice and move things around. So that cut off maybe another fourth. The thing I think is going to hammer another nail in the coffin of SSRS is the document generation and Excel templates in CRM 2016. Looking at the roadmap, it includes relationships. Now, I don't know how deep it's going to go. I think there's still going to be some limitations there. But even if it's only one level deep relationships, that's going to take another fourth to a half of the common SSRS reports, because that'll take away a lot of things like quote reporting. they'll take a lot of the things where you have more of a structured form. And I maintain if you have a form report, where I want to get this form for somebody to fill out that includes some fields, the problem with using SSRS for that is you never can be sure where the pages are going to be break or what it's going to look like when exported. So that leaves kind of a small sliver of what it used to be, in my opinion.
I can only add to that. To me, there are a couple other things that are leading to SSRS demise, let's put it this way. One is user education. How many times people said to you, for example, Joel, I need a report. And when you actually start talking to them, after 5 minutes, you say, so what you're saying, you need a list of things.
Right.
And then you just build a list, a query, a view for them, and they go away happy because they can export it to Excel and what's not. But it's always up to date and so forth. So I attribute some of that to the user education. They become more aware that things that they need, not the actual report. They want to see a certain filtered list of data. So that with the immersive Excel, that become even more prolific because they can do it themselves. They can sort. They can see what's happening. So user education played a huge role in that. The other thing that seems to be start bubbling up, you mentioned the quotes and something like this. And when we, for example, demoed our product, I'll do a plug here, right? So one of the features we have with WordPress integration is what we call read-only form binding. So you bind a specific page to an entity, and you say, I will pass ID through this query parameter, right? And then inside the page HTML, you can drop shortcodes because WordPress is famous for its use of shortcodes. You drop a shortcode which says, oh, I want field first name, or I want field last name, and things like that, right? So if someone says, oh, I want to be able to show a quote to the client, we're saying don't even bother going anywhere reporting. So you build a page, a portal page that binds directly to CRM data. And that's another way of immediate reporting. And then you can print this page if you want to. It's HTML, right? So you just print this page. So binding in portals and delivering up to date is also a big factor. And it's gonna, with external party access coming to 2016, the story gonna get even better, more streamlined.
Another thing to add to that is the drive for mobile has been another nail in the coffin of SSRS, because SSRS itself does not work well on mobile, and it doesn't work in the and so whereas the document templates, if you look at the roadmap, add to that the feature of the app linking, where I can generate a Word template in CRM app and have it launch the Word app and open it up and do that. You're somebody who's going out visiting with a client and then generating a document for them, a home assessor or something like that. That's going to be much more appealing than SSRS report they have to go to a computer
Absolutely. To do. There is only one area where I think Power BI needs to catch up with SSRS, and I'm sure you have those customers, particularly in the top management, customers who love receiving their reports by email.
Yeah, I actually have three cases on my list, and that's one of them. Email subscriptions. People love their SSRS email subscriptions and do not want to give them up.
Correct. So that kind of, the case is really moot for CRM Online because you can't effectively do that, not right now anyway, and I think it's very low on the priority list for the team to enable scheduled reporting, but certainly with OAuth, some things will become more enabled with Web API and OAuth, the primary authentication mechanism. But for partner-hosted and for on-premises, one of my daily routine is basically scheduling and rescheduling some of the reports for partner-hosted CRM because people love receiving their 7 morning emails.
Right.
And if they miss that, they get really, really upset. So,
well, I've seen people come close to that with the MSCRM add-ons document core pack because it has the ability to auto-generate from a workflow, and so you potentially can get close to that. And I'm sure with some kind of a little bit of development you can get there. But you're right. That's probably number one is email subscriptions. I'll give you two others that I don't see a clear fit for outside of SSRS. One is activity reporting. And when I say activity reporting, I'm talking about not just how many calls did you make today, but things like that get deep into things that require you to use activity parties. Because if I want to say, okay, who have I really touched and get to the actual customer level, you need to go through the activity parties. Say I have an activity linked to an opportunity, but I ultimately want to link it to that. And the reason I say that that's not a clear fit is because that's where the document generation and email generate and export to Excel and things like that can't get to that level. And there's things that I don't see any duplicating that with that. Also, that's not really what Power BI is really.
I agree. The other one would be connections. So when you go many-to-many relationships through the internal entity like activity party or connections, and in a very generic way, then you go across many-to-many in generalized way. You connect anything to anything, so and that applies both to activity parties and connections. Then a really good SQL is the only way to figure out what's going on.
And the third common category I had is things like pre-filtered account that have deep relationships, where you've got 25 custom entity grids you want to show and kind of an at-a-glance snapshot. That's not something where I predict that the document generation is not going to be mature enough to handle that type of scenario. And also, that's not really what Power BI, there's no equivalent to pre-filtering with Power BI right now. And so if I want to have a quick at-a-glance snapshot extract of an account or some similar record or custom entity type structures, there's still going to be to it, but it's a fraction of what we used to use SSRS for. It's going to be more the exception than the rule.
Yeah, what Power BI badly needs to become even more powerful is ability to parameterize Power BI reports that you embed back to CRM.
Right.
So I should be able to say, give me the my view as a user, so not across organization, but my own personal view, or give me like for large account, embed Power BI report, but specific for that account only. That is not possible right now, as far as I know. But
no, it's not, and that's what it needs. And I can, if it gets there, which I'm sure it will, then it will be goodbye SSRS. I would love to see it. I would love to see Power BI replace the charting engine in CRM as well, just because I think it's much richer, and the way that it drills through and things like that are much smoother than the alternative.
Agree. Yeah, totally agree. So yes, that was one of the outcomes of Extreme Week that I now strongly in Power BI camp. I don't like SSRS anymore, even though it serves me well for a number of years.
So George says SSRS is dead to him. That's the headline. Let's talk about controversial tip number 516. Where once again you were trashing me in our blog about our disagreement about the first name field. Do you want to summarize your position on the first name field, George?
Okay, the summary of my position on the first name field, because I live in Asia Pacific region. So Australia is part of Asia Pacific, regardless that it's part of Commonwealth and it's English speaking country. Culturally and financially, we're part of Asia Pacific. That means we communicate a lot with partners from Asian countries. And in a lot of countries, Asian countries in particular, people don't have a concept of the first name as such, or last name for this matter. It's hard to explain, but let's say in China, it's usually in reverse to Western understanding. In some countries like Indonesia, if you are the fourth child, your name is Ketut whether you want it or not. If you're fourth, eighth, or 12th child, right? That's it. So Western equivalent of the name is Ketut. And so when you met someone named Ketut, you know that they're fourth, eighth, or 12th child. And they go like village goes. A surname is part of the village setup and things like that. So
and usually when they come over here, they say, "Call me Roy" or something like that.
Yes, it's like actually it's Xin Quang Wang and yeah, call me Bob. Right, so it's easier for you. So they do find an equivalent, but effectively they give in and say, okay, you wouldn't understand that anyway, so he's your equivalent, you can understand. The other thing is that it's not only specific to Eastern world. Spanish-speaking people told me that it's a customary in a lot of Spanish-speaking countries to take the surname of both father and mother, like a double surname. But because of the complexity for the documents, for the travel in Western world, they stick with one of those. But technically, when you write the full name, it's like a first, middle name, another middle name, and then two surnames. And it's part of their name. So to generalize the concept, when you go international, the only way to generalize it is to say, okay, what is your name? That's part number one. So you capture the name of the person. It could be name on the document. I really don't care, but that's their name, the full name. And then the second part, you say, how should I address you? Right? When I call you, dear, what? You want to be called Bob? Yes. You want to be called by your specific cultural name? Fine. How should I address you? And that's it. So to me, it's two parts to conversation. So there's no first or last name. To me, this concept is like historical, and it's wrong. When you go international, it just doesn't feel right. So that's my gripe with it.
Okay, and I do not disagree with you. I believe I always agreed with you if you're selling.
Okay, can we
to
make
Asian
it
Pacific.
Sorry to interrupt. Can we make it a subtitle of our podcast? Joel does not disagree with George.
Yes. Yeah, so SSRS is dead to George. Joel does not disagree with George. Okay. But here's where I think the good thing of having the first and last name field is outside of there in Europe and North America, quite frequently people want to sort by the last name, because when I'm dealing with 1,000 contacts or even 100, to find them, I've got a lot of Johns. They might be spelled different ways, so I sort by the last name. I think that's probably the most common of the clients I deal with, which admittedly are mostly North American, although we have a couple who get into other cultures as well. So having that there, the thing that I brought out in my kind of things to think about is that by putting the full name in the last name field, I've found it can lead to weird results in things like the Outlook synchronization. Now, I believe you're recommending use the salutation field for this. We actually had a client who tried using the nickname field for that and putting the full name in the last name, because their system of record that they were integrating with only had the one name field. And what happens is the nickname field, I guess my advice is if you choose to do this, don't use the nickname field, because the nickname field syncs to the Outlook, syncs with the Outlook sync as well. So what they wound up with was George Doubinski, John Smith, because it would put the nickname and then the last name. So unless you're James Bond, you probably don't want that. The other thing is, I think my concern would be is if you do cover North America or Europe, or even probably parts of South America, Well, you're limiting yourself potentially with things like marketing lists and marketing automation because if I've got the salutation and the full name, I'm basically making a call that I'm never going to want to reference last name in a click dimensions email blast or something like that. And that's a little concerning to me when in my opinion, you've got the full name field. You can show the full name field. You can set the way it's displayed. If you're in a region where that doesn't apply, sure, turn it off. But be sure that by doing that, you're not going to need just the last name.
Okay, I think the compromise I would be happy to live with is keep your first and last name, but the full name must be, I wouldn't say user editable. Let's call it user adjustable. You should be able to A, edit it if needed, and B, perhaps apply rules how to build it, which go beyond first name, last name, comma, first name. That's not good enough. So if we have more flexible rules of building the full name and we have ability to adjust it if needed. So I'm saying, like, untick the box and say, the name is generated, and you untick that box and you edit the full name to adjust it to the full name, to correct full name of the client. Or you put the condition saying if client is from China, please reverse last name and first name as part of their full name. I can live with that.
I like this. I like the Captain Redlace's approach, which is to create a secondary full name field that a workflow populates that captures the name in the opposite order via real-time workflow or plugin. And what that does is it lets me search by last name, first name, or first name, last name if you make it searchable.
Yeah, that's not bad, but I would go one step further and say this secondary full name, let's call it correct one, we put an engine, the rule engine that builds it up using cultural references and cultural rules. So it takes into account it builds a localized version of that name. And then you should be able to tweak it if required. So right. Yeah, I would take it as a compromise. So I appreciate the nod to the Western society with the first and last name. But if you stay within Western society, like Northern America or most of the Europe, then I'd say, yeah, fine, go with first, last name, it's fine. But if you're ever planning to go international, if you're planning to put context from Asian countries, give it a second thought and consider the possibilities that the way they build their full names is different from Western way.
So it sounds like we have a détente on this conflict.
Yeah, I think it's a peaceful resolution for a change.
Well, do you have a super exciting developer tool this week?
Yeah, I gave it some thinking, and this time I go in a slightly different direction, and I delivered a talk at CRM at Extreme CRM that is titled "Developing for CRM Without .NET." So we wrote a code with Jason Latimer and Dave Berry, who both not here, so I'm taking all the glory.
Was that the .NET session again?
Correct, yes, but it's a bit more extended and with a bit more details, a bit more polished than it was at CRM UG. But we delivered code in Node.js, Python, and PHP. And one of my advices to generally to developers is that to be a good developer, you need to be versatile. You need to be versatile. You need to be a Renaissance man. You need to be able to do a lot of different things. And you need to know different languages. Because even if your primary target is .NET and you're a C# developer, it helps your imagination. It helps your level of professionalism if you do know multiple languages. The same way as in real life. If you're bilingual, if you know 3-4 languages, you're a much more versatile person, a much more versatile human being, and your brain functions better. So my advice would be start learning another language, And the way to do it, I came across of these, and it's exciting because I gave it to my son, this book to my son, and he hooked up on it. It's called Learn Python the Hard Way. So it's a book by Zed Shaw, who is well known in programming circles. The guy is also an accomplished musician, so he approached his teaching in the same way as musicians approach their training, so to speak. Repetition is the key. Small exercises every day, repeat exercises, rinse, repeat is the key. So that's how he approached this book, and it's a very popular book. You can have it online for free, or you can pay a bit, like $29, and get full videos on it and things like that. But it's written in a different way. And it's extremely good book if you want, say, to learn a different language, and why not to start with Python, which is considered to be one of the better languages, so to speak. So Learn Python the Hard Way, and if you search, you will find it immediately.
This brings us to the end of this episode. Thursday will be U.S. Thanksgiving, so feel free to eat a turkey that day if you want to, George. Do you have turkeys in Australia?
We do have a couple bush turkeys, which have been annoying me lately in the backyard, so I might consider
barbecue them.
Barbecuing them. They're very lean and mean, so it's like, I don't know, chewing on your bag. So probably, I don't know. They look mean and very, very lean. They're skinny. They're not fat.
I have a theory that nobody really likes to eat turkey. I think if people really liked turkey, there would be more turkey restaurants, but you don't see the International House of Turkey or Kentucky Fried Turkey. So I have a feeling like people are sentimental and into nostalgia, and remember, we had to have turkey at Thanksgiving growing up, so we have to have this turkey now. I'm not a big turkey fan, maybe some deli meat or something, but
Yeah,
anyway.
Look, I'm not a big turkey fan either, but my wife managed to find a way to make it a regular meal, and the trick is you use turkey mince and you make meatballs.
Ah, okay.
And that comes out reasonably well and tastes like chicken.
Okay. If it being good means it tastes like chicken, though, shouldn't you just be eating the chicken?
Yeah, but everything tastes like chicken.
This has been CRM Audio, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM podcast. You can hear previous episodes on our website, crm.audio. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio, or leave us a comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/CRM podcast. If you have any topic suggestions or questions that you would like for us to answer on a future episode, please drop us an email at voice@crm.audio. Special thanks to Dale Simmons for our theme music. Go check out his website, dalesimmons.com. Please join us next time on CRM Audio.